All right, welcome to this special conversation. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and I often find myself tongue-tied when I have to introduce certain people, and today I'm completely out of words because the champion who's sitting right next to me, his accolades, his accomplishments, the glory he commands, and the respect that he commands cannot be measured in words. He's somebody who's made India proud multiple times. He's a champ of champs and one of the nicest souls that anyone can ever come across. Winner of 20 Grand Slams. I was corrected just a minute ago. I said 18, but he's the winner of 20 Grand Slams. Leander Paes is with me.
Namaskar.
Uh,
What a pleasure to be here with you.
Namaskar, Leander. Thank you so much. And what makes this a lot more easy is the fact that you're always smiling, you're always happy, you're always ready for what's coming next with a smile. I'm afraid most of us cannot do that. First question, let's, dive into the deep end of your life, as I would like to say it. I read a story very recently. I keep myself updated about you that, you went to your father and you told him that you wanted to be a tennis player. And he laughed at your face, right? And he laughed for quite some time. He was basically like this, say in Instagram terms, rolling on the floor when he heard that. Tell us about that day. We'll get into some other granularities about your life a bit later.
I was born into a legacy. My mother is of Bengali Hindu descent, and she's 5 foot 2 inches tall, and she captained India in basketball.
Wow.
My mother, like most Indian women, was the center of the house. She had intuition. She was a born leader. She knew the birth date of every child of her teammates. In that, my mother was born with quick twitch fibers, fast as lightning, great eye for life and the sport. And my father, on the other side, was 6 foot 3, born in Goa, Portuguese Indian descent. He was the center half of the 1972 Munich Olympic field hockey team, and they won the bronze medal eventually. But as you remember, in 1972, Palestinian terrorists took Israeli athletes hostage,
Correct.
and
Munich.
Munich Olympic Games were shut down for 4 days.
Yeah.
The German army was in, and just so happens that 10,000 athletes in the Olympics gets housed along one street in alphabetical order by country. So India was bang opposite Israel. The games were shut down for 4 days. Civilians were not allowed inside the village. Athletes were not allowed out. And just as life would have it, I was conceived in those 4 days. I was born 9 months later on the 17th of June, 1973, with these genetics. And that is why geographical genetics become a great way to build a nation. And sport is a great vehicle to empower the youth of a nation. So in that, I was very blessed at a young age to understand the legacy I was born into, and hence it gave me a direction. But with the Bengali, Hindu, and the Portuguese Christian genes, football was my first love. And I was born with these big, massive legs, and I loved playing football. And Pele was one of my heroes growing up. And I used to get punished in school because I'd always have a football at my feet. And I'd be donutting my class teachers and my classmates and dribbling the football all through the school. And eventually I realized that India was not so powerful in football back in the 80s when I grew up. So my father said, now what you going to do? And I said, tennis. And he did laugh at me. You've done your homework well. He laughed at me for a whole 11 minutes. And as a 11-year-old, when your father laughs at you for that long, it hits home. You feel it. So I said to him, find me the best tennis academy. Give me 365 days. And 52 weeks, I'll let you know if I can be a tennis player.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
You almost became a football player.
Hmm?
Tell us about that. And I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but you also met Pele, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
You were-
Marco van Basten brought the New York Cosmos team to Calcutta, and they played at the Eden Garden Stadium. And
So that's that famous visit by Pele.
that was the famous big visit, the first and only time that Pele came to play in India. And they came to Kolkata and they played in the big stadium. And I was a ball boy. I was a ball boy along the side flanks of the field. And the first few times the ball came, I caught it and I threw it over to him and felt really chuffed about myself. But in the end of the second half, I was getting bored. So when the ball came over, I was young. I was just such a kid. I was 11 years old. I collected it on my chest and I juggled it for about 7, 8 touches. And as he came closer, I nodded it to him. Well, the crowd went nuts. Mr. Pele looked over at me and he said, "I see you after match." I thought I was in trouble. But then after the match, they came over and we played a little tiki-taka, which is a little dribbling and passing. And the Brazilians play this form of tiki-taka style of football. And I guess they liked what they saw. And I was one of 3 Asian kids who were selected for the European PSV Eindhoven junior team. So that was my dream. My dream was to put India on a map with football. That was not meant to be. And I had to pick a sport that I was less talented
There's
at.
an interesting story behind that as well. Why didn't you pick football?
Well, at that point in the 80s, football was not as big. The knowledge of training and nurturing young football talent was not there. We know that in the Northeast, we know that in West Bengal, we know that in Kerala, we know that in Goa, 2 of the pedigrees that I come from, football is big. But when it comes to contact sport, we Indians are not the most powerful or the biggest, or that's where geographical genetics come into play. And I feel like in a country of 1.4 billion people, the need of the hour is to select talent, is to scout talent, is to take sports science, which is what my father was a doctor of for 60 years of his life, which is what I have been trained as 40 years of my life playing professional tennis. That sports science tells me that when you test human genetic, when you look at the blood, when you look at the gene pool, geographically, we're all built differently.
Sure.
And it's not just that because you have access to hockey, chal hockey khelte hai, ya you have access to cricket, chal cricket khelte hai. Oh, you don't have access to tennis because it's an affluent sport, so tennis nahi khelte hai. Today we are in a country where we own 40 plus Grand Slam titles.
Which is
Today in a country, India, we have 7 consecutive Olympic world record participations. I've played 7. Today we've got the world record in Davis Cup. Today we got the world record in Asian Games medals. And most importantly, today India has got, it's the first Asian athlete to be inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame. So in that, if I can, anyone can. It's just a system. 10,000 hours, 3 million perfect repetitions over 10 years, you can master anything. It's called brain mapping, it's called muscle memory. And my passion is to share this knowledge that I've been so blessed to be born into and blessed to have lived a whole life achieving what I wanted to do in a sport that I was not technically talented at. If you look at the average height of a tennis player in the 80s when I started, it was 6'1". In the 90s, 6'2". Today, the average height of a tennis player is 6'4". Wow. I'm 5'10" on a good day. Like most Indians. In that, we have a Indian jugadu brain.
that we do.
We are so intellectually sound. And when we look at a generation through the 80s and 90s, and even today, most parents are pushing their children through academia. डॉक्टर बनने का है, कंप्यूटर साइंटिस्ट बनने का है, ऐप बनाने का है. मगर आजकल बच्चे लोग स्पोर्ट नहीं खेलते इतना. और उसमें इतना बड़ा मौका है हमारा कि not just for preparing for the bid for the 2036 Olympics, but I must compliment our Prime Minister and the whole government for coming up with a movement like Hello India. I think Hello India is a massive movement that can empower a nation and actually move the GDP. How? By empowering the youth to show the youth that not just in tennis, but in all sport, that equal prize money, opportunity, scholarships, jobs. And when the government supports the community and the children of the community, then the loyalty for the community will be back to the government.
Absolutely.
I feel that even in a sport like tennis, where most people think it's a very affluent sport, it's a very rich person sport, contrary, I think that if I can pull the entire nation together, whether it's the government, whether it's the corporate world, whether it's CSR, whether it's reaching out to the masses and taking the sport to the masses, and taking sports education to the masses, going out into the rural areas, making it accessible. That आप खेलेंगे तो खाना मिलेंगे, आप खेलेंगे तो scholarship मिलेंगे पढ़ाई के लिए, आप खेलेंगे तो jobs भी मिलेंगे.
In fact, I was going to speak to you about that. You know, there is a saying, or a folklore kind of a sentence which says that, padhoge likhoge to banoge nawab, kheloge koodoge to hoge kharab. Do you think that mentality still exists within Indian parents? Technologically, India has done extremely well. Geopolitically, India has come of age. Internationally, we're a force to reckon with. But when it comes to choosing a career, there seems to be a dilemma in every parent's mind till today. Why do you think that is?
That's so beautifully put. But when you look at the Western world, all work and no play will make Jack a dull boy.
That's a very good comeback.
And if you look at the Western world and how they've used sport to empower their people. Now let's look at America, for example. The NCAA system, National Collegiate Athletic Association.
Correct.
Tennis was the first sport to give equal scholarships to young girls as to boys. Tennis was the first sport to have equal opportunity to women as to men, and the first sport to have equal prize money. Now, when you look at the empowerment of the entire community, I feel that not just tennis, but all sport to help with mental health, emotional health, physical fitness. Because now when you look at the Western world, India has surpassed the Western world so much
Sure.
in terms of business, banking, mathematics. I'm not even getting into the science and AI and tech and
Microsofts and the Googles.
it's incredible.
incredible.
We are leading the forefront in academia,
Yeah.
not just in America, but in Europe, in the entire world.
Entire world.
India is the lead of modern business and sport and science and tech. But I feel that my humble feeling is that over the next 10 to 15 years, the world's powerhouse is moving between the Middle East and Japan. And I think it's a great opportunity for India to use sport as a vehicle to empower the nation, to empower the youth, to then when we get to the 2036 Olympics, that we are a powerhouse in sport. And if we are a powerhouse in sport, along with tech and science and business and math and banking, suddenly the rest of the world are looking at us as a complete nation. And that is where I feel like Khelo India, Prime Minister Modi's vision with sport, the push towards the 2036 Olympics, all tie in to the betterment of an entire nation. I 100% believe that if I can sit here as the first Asian male to be inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame, even after losing 74.3% of every tennis match I've played, I feel any young child from India can do it.
That's beautifully put. Okay, let's turn the corner a little bit and talk about tennis per se, tennis in particular. A lot of people, sports aficionados, fans of yours like me, fans of tennis, Indian tennis as well as global tennis, feel that India has perhaps slowed down in terms of its achievements when it comes to tennis, especially the kind of achievements that you and Mahesh were able to pull off. Why do you think that is? Is there something wrong with the way tennis is perceived? You mentioned a couple of times that it's an affluent sport like golf or polo, what have you. Do you think that is the reason? But India, the middle class, the aspirational middle class is getting richer. Then why is there this inversely proportional ratio of tennis not going up?
That's a great question. Firstly, thank you for all that support. It's been my greatest honor playing for our flag, playing for our people. And when you stand on a podium at the Olympics, on the podium, and you see the Tiranga go up, and you hear the national anthem play, you got Andre Agassi on your side, you got Sergio Bruguera on the other side. It is the greatest sense of patriotism to know that out of 1.4 billion plus people,
You're the chosen one.
you're the blessed one.
You're the blessed one.
You're the blessed one to prove that we Indians can be world beaters. And that is why I'm not resting on my laurels. That is why I'm here looking at a second innings as a country that's in love with cricket to basically give back to the country, give back to sport, give back to our people. I'm huge on the people. I love inspiring Indians to be the best versions of themselves. So coming back to your pointed question towards tennis, you are 100% right. That we have 40 plus Grand Slam wins. We have 7 Olympic participations, world record. We have an Olympic medal in India. We have a Hall of Fame medal in India. But I think the need of the day today is about policy. The need of today in tennis in India, it's about the right governance and the right policy to take the sport to the masses, to take it to tier 2, tier 3, build the infrastructure so children खेल सकते हैं, बच्चे लोग खेल सकते हैं, और उसमें भी आप खेलेंगे तो खाना मिलेंगे, आप खेलेंगे तो पढ़ाई करेंगे, आप खेलेंगे तो jobs मिलेंगे. In that, the policy of tennis in India needs to be remodeled, where India looks at tennis, or the people or the community or tier 2, tier 3 look at tennis as an aspirational game. Look at tennis as a sport that can enhance your quality of life. When we look at the Russias of the world, when we look at the Serbias of the world, when we look at Eastern European countries of the world, which is where most of tennis world number ones have come.
Sure.
Djokovic, Safin, Sharapova, I could go on with the names.
Sure.
But they looked at tennis, even from a war-torn Serbia, as a way to enhance their quality of life. And I think the day that we make tennis policy and governance to enhance the quality of life of the masses, tab wo khelenge. And I 100% believe that when the government and when the corporate world and when the CSR, and I believe I can be that instrument to pull people together to support the sport in our country, to empower the youth of our country using tennis as a vehicle. I believe that in 11 years that we have before the 2036 Olympics, we can have tennis as a powerhouse and a front runner to our Olympic movement, just as when I played. But there's a lot of work to be done in the grassroots and with policy.
Right. I'm going to take a leaf out of what you said at the end, that, there is a lot of work that needs to be done in order to, realize that dream. How important a role is education going to play in that? I'll give you an example. In the 80s, there was a drive by the government that went into the 90s and way into the 2000s to have computer literature and computer science embedded in the education system. That happened, that started in the 80s, and we have gotten to see the results, the wonderful results that have been produced by Indian technocrats in either Google or Microsoft or all over the world in a fashion which is globally recognized. Do you think that seed in terms of sports education, tennis education, is still not, it's very ambivalent. It's not completely confronted with the way it's confronted in the West. Okay, this is something that's supposed to be done, and that's when you will get the result. Do you think that feeling still is missing in India when it comes to education in sports?
Hanji, 100%. The answer lies in the question that you framed, just in the fact when computer science became the need of the hour.
Yeah.
20 years later, 2 decades later, we are the forefront leaders in tech, computer science, app building, AI.
Yeah.
We're the ones designing it. The Western world, whether it's Europe or America, are actually hiring our services to design their AI. When you look at Microsoft, when you look at all these different heads of the biggest technological companies in the world, Indians are at the helm of it. So hence, again, great kudos to the government at that time in the 80s of making a point to put computer sciences and to put tech to the forefront. I think we got a great leader at the top at the moment in our country. And I believe that Khelo India is a fantastic movement. If you look in the last budget, approximately 1,500 crores have been given towards Khelo India for the betterment of the Olympic sports.
Yeah.
And I think that the use of that, the positioning of that to the masses to better their quality of life, and hence the lower middle class, hence the bottom line, hence the poverty line, and raise the bar higher, so hence the GDP of the country goes up. I think that the intelligence that Modi ji has is fantastic. And I think the implementation of his vision is where the magic of sport in our country lies. I've worked with over 8 or 9 sports ministers in our country, all wonderful human beings. And in that, I feel that when it comes to the movement towards 2036, we've got 11 years here, we've got a whole decade.
Definitely.
10,000 hours, 3 million perfect repetitions. In 10 years, brain mapping is done and muscle memory is done. You can produce champions. And I think through the Khelo India movement, just as they did with tech in the 80s, I feel that the need of the hour today is sport, is empowerment of our country and our youth through sport.
Wonderfully articulated. One of your contemporaries, Rohan Bopanna, said that tennis is in trouble. It needs to be resuscitated, is the word that he used. And he said that tennis is becoming like entrepreneurship. You need to invest money. If it takes off, it is well and good. If it does not, then you have a loss. And he said that very, very recently. Do you concur with what he has said? And if so, do you feel there is resuscitation involved or required? Who needs to step in? What needs to be done to save tennis in India, if you think that is the scenario?
Well, the magic just lies in that. It's easy for us to come and say that cricket takes a lot of the limelight, cricket takes a lot of the sponsorship, cricket takes the media, cricket. That's happened over
That's
4
the
decades of my career.
Yeah.
It's a scapegoat.
Yeah.
What are we doing about it? And I'm sitting here with you today, just as I could live in any part of the world,
Great
because
example.
I've created excellence all over the world. I could sit in any part of the world and have the same reverence, have the same respect, have probably, arguably, a better quality of life, and live peacefully. But what are we doing about it? I believe that we should be the examples of what world we want to create. And hence one is here, back in India, not just looking after parents and not just enjoying our beautiful country, but actually wanting to make a difference through sport, not just tennis, but through all the Olympic sports, to learn from the crickets of the world, to learn from the BCCIs of the world that have empowered their past athletes, empowered their current athletes, where even the IPL is the greatest league in the world.
Correct.
Even better than Formula One.
And most lucrative.
The most lucrative. And look at the empowerment. Past athletes are umpires, are into administration, are into coaching.
Team management.
Look what Rahul Dravid has done as a coach of the under-19 team or of the national team.
Absolutely.
He's one of the best coaches we have in our country. And I think that comes from the vision of what BCCI has done for cricket. Today I could give you a stat that there are 311 ranked tennis players in the All India Tennis Association. Let me give you that stat again. 311 ranked individual athletes, male and female, in All India Tennis Association's rankings.
Wow.
On Marine Drive, I could find you 311 plus cricket teams on one street. Let alone if you go to a state of Jharkhand, or if you go into the state of Maharashtra, or let alone Mumbai, or into the state of Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, or so on and so forth. So I feel that really when you talk about a change, the knowledge is needed. In India, we got money now. In India, we got infrastructure. A lot of our infrastructure at Sports Authority of India's or these big stadiums are not being used throughout a 365-day calendar. Why? When you look at recreational sports like pickleball, gaining TV time and social reverence. When you look at paddle, creating social reverence. Why? Because people come together, play 15 minutes of pickleball or paddle, and then adda karte sab log. Samosa khate, chai peete aur masti karte. Community. But when you come to sports like tennis, which are global moving sports, which is recognized by every single country in the world, if you have a champion in a sport like tennis, you can leverage of that for your geo-economical or your governance on a global scale. And I think my vision is that, is to make India a powerhouse through sport, through the Khelo India movement, and through the guidance and the blessings of the leader that we have in our country, because he can have a great vision. But how that vision trickles down through the system and is implemented is really that's where the magic lies.
That's where the catch is. You're absolutely right. Leander, one last question before we let you go, and you've beautifully articulated and answered all my questions. Listening to you is literally poetry. What do you think is next for India? Our conclave is called Next, and our forum and our endeavor is called Next. What do you think is next for India when it comes to sports, when it comes to tennis? Where do you think we go from here. You've already envisioned that 36 is something that we should plan for. There seems to be a blueprint in your mind as well. What will it take for that blueprint to be, migrated from your mind to the powers that be so they can implement this into motion?
Firstly, I would like to congratulate a grandson to a great-grandfather. A grandfather who led our nation beautifully, who really paved the path for our nation. And I think that the whole next summit, I got to congratulate the channel. And in that, the next summit is really special because I've been to Davos a few times. Great forum for people to speak at and share their knowledge. I was in Dubai recently for the Global Government Summit, and that was wonderful because the human equity created there was wonderful. And I think that the next summit is a great way forward in different walks of life for people to create that human friendship so that the follow-up is what's important.
Absolutely.
I think that having a platform to speak is one thing, but I think carrying that step forward and implementing and empowering not just yourself, but an entire nation to come together as a nation for the people is where the magic's at. And I think that's what's next for India. Is, yes, we lived in one of the most secular nations in the world, but also with the youngest population in the world. And that's going to move. In a decade, that's going to be the oldest middle class and middle-aged in the world.
Yeah.
In the next 2 decades, when, not you, but when I'm an old man, that's going to be the largest senior citizens in the world. And our thoughts have got to move with that.
True.
तो करने का है तो अभी करने का है. The next 10 years is India's 10 years. Now is when it's needed. And I really want to congratulate Next for showcasing India in such a beautiful way, because I'm a patriot through and through. I think the saffron, white and green flows through my blood. And to be a second generation Olympic champion in the house, it's to share this 100 years of knowledge that I have, 60 years of my father and my mother and 40 years of mine, to take that to the masses and to take that to empowering the youth. And I think that's what's next for India, is to build a nation of great diversity in multiple different fields, that we can be a powerhouse that we so proclaim we are. I think I would love to see that in my old age.
Leander, that's so beautifully put. And I can see that you are getting emotional when you talk about India and how the country has basically meant everything for you and the accolades that you have received. Thank you so much for speaking to me. We were able to make so much sense out of what you have said, because that's exactly what India needs when it comes to sports. Really appreciate you taking out the time and speaking to us. It was wonderful having you.
Thank you for having me. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.